You know, in emergency medicine, there are these moments where everything comes down to the ticking of a clock. A heart stops, and a highly trained team, just springs into action. But here's the thing, it's not panic. It's a clear, practiced algorithm. So today, let's dive into exactly what that protocol is, the one that turns chaos into a coordinated fight for a life.
We've all probably heard of CPR, right? And maybe you've even seen one of those public defibrillators. That's what we call basic life support, or BLS. It's the absolute foundation. But when a life is truly, and I mean truly, hanging in the balance, you need another level of care. So the big question is, what comes next?
Well, the answer is advanced life support, or ALS. And this is so much more than just pushing on someone's chest. It's this whole comprehensive set of interventions. We're talking advanced airway gadgets, critical medications, the whole shebang. It's all designed to give that patient the absolute best possible shot at survival. It's the critical next step up from BLS.
Okay, to really get this, let's put ourselves right in the middle of it. Let's walk into what they call a code blue. Picture this, a patient has just gone into cardiac arrest. The first responders are already there, laying the groundwork with that crucial BLS.
So chest compressions are already happening, someone's giving breaths with a bag mask, that foundation is solid. And then the doors fly open. The ALS team arrives, paramedics, ER docs, critical care nurses, and you can just feel the intensity in the room ratchet up. This is where the advanced algorithm really kicks in.
At the very heart of every single ALS resuscitation is a repeating cycle. It's this core loop that guides every single action. This isn't people making things up as they go. It's a meticulously designed algorithm that's all about maximizing the effectiveness of every single second.
And here it is. It's actually a pretty simple rhythm. For 2 solid minutes, the entire focus is on high-quality chest compressions. Then, a super brief pause, we're talking less than 10 seconds, to check the heart's rhythm on the monitor. That check leads to one critical decision, and then, with 0 delay, it's right back to compressions. This 2-minute loop is the engine that drives the whole thing.
So that moment, that split-second decision, it's everything. On one side, you have what we call shockable rhythms, like ventricular fibrillation, or VFib. You can think of this as total electrical chaos in the heart. It's just quivering, not pumping. A shock can act like a hard reset. But on the other side, you've got non-shockable rhythms like asystole. That's the classic flatline. There's no electrical activity to reset, so a shock would do absolutely nothing. The focus there stays on CPR and meds.
And this is why those pauses are so critical. Look at this chart. A simulation study found that the standard protocol takes about 11 seconds, with hands off the chest, to deliver a shock. But with a protocol where you charge the defibrillator while CPR is happening, you cut that time down to under 8 seconds. Now that might not sound like a lot, but that's almost 4 extra seconds of blood pumping to the brain in every single cycle. In this game, every single second counts.
All right, so while that core loop of CPR and rhythm checks is going round and round, the team is also working on 3 other critical things at the same time. Think of these as the support system, the things that make that core loop even more powerful. First up, they're securing an advanced airway, like placing a breathing tube. This guarantees a clear path for oxygen to get in and protects the airway. Second, they need vascular access. That's either an IV in a vein, or if they can't get one, an IO needle that goes right into the bone marrow. It sounds intense, but it creates a direct highway for drugs to get to the heart. And third, they're preparing and giving those life-saving medications.
And speaking of drugs, these are the heavy hitters. You've got epinephrine. You probably know it as adrenaline. It's given every 3 to 5 minutes, no matter the rhythm, to help get the heart going again. Then, if you have one of those shockable rhythms that just won't quit, amiodarone comes into play. It's designed to help stabilize that chaotic electrical activity. But as you can see, the timing is absolutely everything.
But here's the thing. ALS is so much more than just following a recipe. It's about a team that's working like a well-oiled machine, led by someone who's constantly thinking one step ahead and asking the most important question: why? Why did this happen in the first place?
This quote from the American Heart Association just nails it. It's not about one heroic doctor. It's about an integrated system. A team with clear roles that communicates perfectly is just as important to survival as any drug or defibrillator. It's a team sport with the highest stakes imaginable.
And this is exactly what that team leader is thinking about. While the code is running, they're on a hunt. They're looking for a reversible cause, using this handy mnemonic, the H's and T's. Could it be a collapsed lung, a tension pneumothorax? Because if it is, a single needle in the chest could fix it. Finding and fixing one of these is often the key that unlocks survival.
So, let's say it works. All the effort pays off. The team gets a pulse back. We call this the return of spontaneous circulation, or ROSC. And it's a huge, huge victory. But the fight is far from over. In fact, a new and just as critical phase of care begins right at that moment.
After getting a pulse, the priorities immediately shift. Now it's all about protecting the brain and other organs from the damage that happened when the heart was stopped. That means fine-tuning oxygen levels, carefully managing blood pressure, and often actively cooling the patient's body to protect the brain. And all the while, that hunt for the root cause continues with things like ECGs and CT scans.
So, after running through this whole complex algorithm, from that core 2-minute loop all the way to post-arrest care, what's the one thing that really matters? What's the biggest takeaway from all of this?
Well, let's start with a really sobering number. Only about 10% of people who have a cardiac arrest outside of a hospital actually survive to go home. That number really puts into perspective how serious this is, and it shows why every single action, right from the very beginning, is so incredibly vital.
And that brings us to the most important point of this entire explainer. The advanced airways, the drugs, the brilliant team leader, all of it. Every single part of ALS is built on one simple, unshakable foundation. Early, high-quality CPR and getting a defibrillator on the patient as fast as humanly possible. Advanced life support supports basic life support. It never, ever replaces it. And so, that really leaves us with one final thought to chew on. If the foundation of survival is built long before the advanced team ever even gets there, then the real question we have to ask ourselves is this: how can we, as a community, as a system, do a better job of empowering every single person with the confidence and the skills to lay that life-saving foundation?